Roger Stone is in studio with us for the rest of the hour. We'll also go to some of these callers holding at the bottom of the hour on their political correct stories. That ties into what he's been exposing. He's written the New York Times bestselling book, The Men Who Killed Kennedy. You probably heard of that. He's an alternative historian who was exposing just so many different events that have unfolded. I'm not going to go over his whole bio. He's also credited with the hardball tactics which resulted in closing down the Miami-Dade presidential recount. Stone is credited in HBO recent movie Recount 2000 with fomenting the so-called Brooks Brothers riot, in which a Republican mob swarmed the recount, demanding shutdown while thousands of Cuban Americans marched outside the courthouse. He also has worked around the world with pro-democracy, pro-American governments during elections. RogerStone.com, and I've met him and folks up in Dallas at some of the big JFK memorial events, like the 40th anniversary a few years ago. But the reason we got him in studio is I learned he was going to be down in Austin this week, and we already had an article back on November 3rd titled, Political Strategist, Hillary Clinton is an Abuser of Women and Girls. Now, I personally have interviewed women that Bill Clinton raped, and I mean women that Bill Clinton brutally raped and then settled out of court with. But the word is Hillary also has some of her own activities, but it's kind of like black unemployment doubling under Obama. They then put out all this pro-black rhetoric, but it's really the opposite. So we're going to be speaking to some of that today and really going over who is Hillary Clinton. Because even if you're a Democrat that identifies with her and thinks she's some wonderful, great saint, with the amount of dirt that is in her background, with the amount of dirt that's going on, it makes her extremely blackmailable. And so that's my biggest concern with Hillary, not just her saying we should look at Australian-style gun confiscation and things like that. And so, again, we also have the video of him with Larry King Live breaking that down on RT of all places. So thank you so much for coming in to join us today to break all this down. Roger Stone's our guest, RogerStone.com. Good to see you again, buddy.
Alex, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
You know I'm known for talking a lot, and I know a lot about Hillary and Bill, but you've written a book about it, and I read some stuff in your book that I didn't even know, but then I went and looked up. It turned out it was true. I mean, there's a lot of folks that have it out for women and like to target them. Most predators do for some reason, whereas most of us that aren't predators want to defend women and children. What's the Clintons' relationship with women?
Yeah, the point here, of course, is that the whole central narrative of her campaign is bogus. She is not an advocate for women and girls. She's an abuser of women and girls. Bill is not your roguish old uncle who just has an eye for the ladies. As you know, he's a serial sexual predator, very much like Bill Cosby. And the number of women that he has raped, bitten, sexually assaulted, abused, you know, I identified in this book 27 individual women. Now, some of these women's names, you know, Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones, Kathy Willey, but so many of the names you don't know: Christy Zurcher, Becky Brown, Carolyn Moffett, Helen Dowdy, Eileen Wellstone, Liz Ward Grayson. The list goes on and on and on. Now, some liberals try to say to me, well, what does that have to do with Hillary? Well, Hillary's the one who runs the cover-up. Hillary is the point person to silence these women, lest they get in the way of the Clintons' lust for power and wealth. Hillary's the one who hires the heavy-handed private detectives, Jack Palladino, Anthony Pellicano, Ivan Duda, who go out and run a veritable terror campaign to silence these women. So the notion that Hillary has somehow been an advocate for women, no, Bill rapes them physically, and then Hillary rapes them psychologically.
She's kind of a beard for his raping. She plays the part of, I'll never, you know, leave my man. I stand by my man. He's a good guy. She testifies for him. She defends him. She's an enabler.
Yeah, but it's worse than that, because it's not just that he can get away with it. It's that she ensures that there's no public exposure. This is why the famous feminist Camille Paglia says Hillary's a fraud. Her husband has degraded and exploited women. Or Joanne Vinocci, the feminist writer for the Boston Globe, the liberal newspaper, says that Bill Clinton should be held to the same standard as Bill Cosby.
From your research, deep research, because I know you've been on this for years, who's more of an abuser of women, Cosby or Clinton?
I think Clinton, because Cosby, you see, drugs them, whereas Clinton just uses brute force. Alex, I interviewed 3 women that he bit. He bites through the upper lip. It's kind of his signature. First of all, it's a disabling move because, of course, a woman then stops trying to cover
That's
her.
what a pit bull does.
Right. It tries to cover her mouth. And then secondarily, it's a not so subtle message to keep your mouth shut. So this guy is a criminal. He's a sex addict. He's a pedophile. The book goes way beyond this. We tie his epic drug use, the fact that he himself was a habitual user of cocaine, that he was in and out of drug rehab when he was governor, that he was involved, as you know, in the whole question of drug trafficking in and out of Arkansas, in connection with the Bushes, in connection with the Central Intelligence Agency. And when Dan Lassiter, the biggest drug dealer in Arkansas, when he was ultimately convicted of drug trafficking, he went out and got himself this really smart woman lawyer. Her name was Hillary Clinton. And she and her law partner, Vince Foster, why they arranged for Lassiter to get a full pardon from Governor Bill Clinton.
Wow. And then now today at a bigger scale, she heads up the State Department and gets billions of dollars brought into their foundation, hundreds of millions from dictators and people on lists that you can't sell weapons to. And then she waives that and lets the State Department give a green light to shipping weapons to countries in exchange for money. I mean, these people really are the criminal's criminal.
Yeah, look, the Clinton Foundation is not a foundation and it's not a charity. It's two things. It's a slush fund for grifters. And secondarily, it's just a vehicle for the facilitation of massive bribes. So, for example, the country of Qatar wants to overthrow Gaddafi, who, although he's not a great guy, is an ally of the United States, is feeding us intelligence on al-Qaeda. They put $1.5 million in Bill's pocket for a 20-minute speech, bribe. They put $1 million in Hillary's pocket for a 20-minute speech, bribe. They put $2.5 million into the Clinton Foundation. At the same time, they're paying off Tony Blair in the UK and Sarkozy in France. And lo and behold, we topple Gaddafi, and women in Libya who under Gaddafi were allowed to vote, be educated, go outside without a veil, drive a car, choose their own husband. Women have been set back 200 years in Libya. They go from having the best quality of life in the continent of Africa to the worst. That's Hillary Clinton, the advocate for women.
It is like she's a wicked witch. I mean, it's not normally fair to just use analogies like that. I'll get you and your little dog too, but everything she touches just gets destroyed. Everything she does is evil. And then her lies about being in combat, you know, being shot at when they landed in Serbia, none of it's true. Brian Williams loses his job over it, not her. How can she get away with so much?
It's amazing. So last week she comes out with 2 weeks ago with a gun control proposal. And she says in it that if you have been accused of domestic abuse, you should not be allowed to own a gun. Well, under that circumstance, she wouldn't be allowed to own a gun because, as we prove in the book, she has kicked, bitten, scratched, slapped, and thrown hard objects at her husband. This is a woman with a volcanic temper, a foul mouth, very short-tempered, very, very greedy. This is someone who doesn't have the temperament to be president of the United States.
Well, as you know, it's been reported, I mean, from FBI agents and others that work in the White House, that she rolls on the floor and chews carpet. Only the person I know that does that was Hitler.
That's pretty amazing. Look, we do know this, that when she was in Arkansas attending to her sick father, and she learned that Bill Clinton was entertaining Barbara Streisand overnight at the White House, she flew back to Washington. The next day, he appeared with an enormous scratch across his face. D.D. Myers, the press secretary of the president, tried to say initially that he had cut himself shaving. She was forced to admit, no, Hillary had scratched him. So
was that because she wanted a piece of the action?
No, I think it was because he was humiliating her. You see, I think they have this weird dysfunctional sham relationship where Chelsea Clinton is not Bill's biological daughter.
Webster Hubble, right?
Webster Hubble. I document this in the book. Bill has a mixed-race African-American son in Arkansas, Danny Williams, without any question, the son of Bill Clinton and Bobby Ann Williams. Now, the Star magazine, the Star tabloid, wrote in '99 when Hillary was warming up for the Senate race that a DNA test had disproved that. I tracked this down. The Star was owned at that time by a man named Robert Altman. Altman headed the SEC under Bill Clinton, was forced to resign, major donor to the Clinton campaigns, Clinton Foundation, Clinton roommate at Georgetown. The new owners of the Star, American Media, they opened their files for me. Guess what?
They got hit with anthrax.
There is no DNA test. There never was.
Yeah.
But they tell us Black Lives Matter, Alex. Black Lives Matter unless you're Danny Williams, in which case they can just sweep you out into the carpet. So the Clintons, they lecture us about it takes a village to raise a kid. Why don't they step up and love, support, acknowledge, nurture their son, Danny Williams?